Welcome to 2021.
Woo-hoo-hoo. With a voice like that, with those dulcet tones, I know I can make it through 2021. You know who has followed us from 2020?
Who?
We have some very exciting patron announcements.
Woohoo!
Woo-hoo-hoo. We'll also put the links in the show notes. Make sure you go check out their podcasts as well. We have Paul and Griff. They do some very exciting, tantalizing movie news as well as top 10, top 5 horror ones. They do Freddy Krueger. They do give credit to Kelly Rowland.
Love them.
Love the Excel. We also have Logo Smith Media, My Sisters, Indie Faith, also Smoke and Mirrors. Lots of great movie news, some great stories, some great topics from my Polynesian sisters. And not lastly, most deliciously, we have Brent and PJ from the Hustle Motherfucking Hustle. Yes, Home Video Hustle. Thank you so much, guys. Everyone that's listening, most beloved friends and lovers, make sure you go and check out their podcast. We are spanking all the asses and we are splooshing all the sploosh. Let's get on with the show. Annyeonghaseyo, friends and lovers. Welcome to the For Your Reference podcast in 2021. It's your host, Katie.
And Oti.
Forget to pack your car panties and meet me at the bean flicking couch. Join us, fellow Bong Hive, as we deliver an episode-long verbal ovation to the multi-layered exemplification of the universal and specific Korean struggle in social status with the film Parasite.
Jesus. End the podcast there, I
Were
say.
you not ready for a whopper in your holes, friends and lovers? Welcome, welcome. It is the quality. It is what we do around her. Before we sploosh and need a post-coitus cigarette and a nap, let's get on to the stats, OT. In way of writing, we have Bong Joon-ho as well as Han Jin-won, obviously directed by the effervescent for many generations to come, Bong Joon-ho. We have cast, all the stars are in the constellations tonight, Song Kang-ho, Lee Sung-hyun, and Cho Ye-jung. And obviously, I need to give a shout out to Choi Woo-shik. If you are a particular patron, you will be able to listen to our Okja early release episode while Parasite comes out. He's in there. He's also in Train to Busan, which I know we will definitely cover one of these days.
Just not recognizing Peninsula.
I think Peninsula is Voldemort in Korean.
Agreed.
And also another honorary shout out in the cast of Park Seo-jin. Go and listen to our Itaewon episode. And we are a purveyor in Korean cinema and also TV shows. We've also covered Burning with the well-lauded and well-accoladed Lee Chang-dong. In regards to the box office, this may surprise you, OT. The budget is estimated at $11.4 million.
Really?
Yeah. Reading interviews, watching interviews. They pretty much built the semi-basement home as well as the park's mansion as well because they didn't really want to flood a whole city. So to do everything and for everything to look so beautifully aesthetic, 11.4, mate, that's Blumhouse money. You're laughing.
True that.
Let's continue the accolades. We have a worldwide gross of $258.5 million.
Woo! They made bank.
Yeah, that's a lot of upper class money. If you're welcome. This film premiered in May 2019 at the Cannes Film Festival. As we know, it is well lauded. It won the Palme d'Or. It won 4 Oscars. If you'd like to quiz me, Bong Hive, it was International Film, Best Directing, Original Screenplay, and Best Picture. Obviously BAFTAs as well and SAG Awards, much accolations galore. This is a very tantalizing film. It is also a film of quality, and we have the privilege to say we were one of the first countries to experience it outside of the Cannes Film Festival.
Mm-hmm.
So we saw it in June and it premiered in May. We saw it in June in Australia as part of the Sydney Film Festival.
Yep.
And, we'll get into our first impressions, but this is our third time watching it. So we had watched it as part of the Sydney Film Festival. We had watched it just for funsies. And then they were about to release the black and white version in Australian cinemas. And unfortunately, that's when cinemas start shut down, pandemic, panoramic, Pamela Anderson, whatever you want to call it. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to experience that, but we did get our third watch in most recently. So, wow, OT.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome, friends and lovers. We do have a tantalizing catalog. We are over 100 episodes.
Yeah,
We are close to 100 review episodes. That is a nice way to say if you don't want us to spoil you in the most spleecious of ways, I guess go and turn to other episodes because we are going to get into a lot of detail about Parasite. So let's get into first impressions. So we've mentioned that we've watched it 3 times, OT. I am going to sacrifice you in the bong hive because you weren't fully all thrusters splooshing. And I did have qualm. We had qualm. It almost broke the foundation of our household that you didn't recognize this as your masterpiece and you didn't recognize me as your number one and only Hokage. So let's talk about your first impressions, maybe first, second, third impressions, how you land with Parasite, how you feel about it.
So I love Parasite, but the first time watching it, I
Yep.
had qualms.
Okay.
I had qualms that I thought were not met, or at least Boone didn't meet them, at least my expectations of the movie and of the characters.
Mm-hmm.
By the end of it, I felt frustrated. I felt angry.
Whoa, hey,
I'm just telling you how it is and how it was, rather. So I had my issues with it.
I think some of your issues were projecting, but okay.
Probably projecting, but that's why we're for your reference, mate.
It's not for your projection.
It's from our frame of reference. So
Correct, yes.
everything we watch, we try and at least perceive our essence to it. So,
And I do love your essence on every night.
exactly. So, so I had my issues on the first watch, on the second, and on the third. I took a bit of it. It at least improved the movie a bit. It
Okay.
improved my viewing experience because I think by the third watch, we'd watched it in our own TV,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a lot more. I paid more close attention to the movie that
Yeah.
I was allowed to in the cinema with all the distractions of people moving or laughing. Or I'm a very tunnel viewer sort of approach to watching movies.
Which is weird because I'm always talking.
I learned to integrate at least one more voice into the viewing watching experience rather than having a group of 50 odd people laughing or chewing, or it just takes you off the movie and you get
Yeah.
to miss a few aspects of it a bit.
And we don't have the time to get into it in this episode, but it is very interesting seeing, the consumption of entertainment shifting because they both have their pros and cons and there's always a trade-off, right? I love that we experienced Parasite as part of the Sydney Film Festival and we were one of the
For
first.
sure.
Let me pull my glasses up. We were one of the first to experience it in the world outside of the Cannes Film Festival, right? That's an experience that needed to be had.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, you don't get the luxury of it did have subtitles, but comprehensive subtitles, moments to really be able to digest without, the periphery of other people's reactions. But then when you're watching at home, you don't get that visceral experience.
Yeah.
You do through the film, but you don't get that periphery. And I guess, there are moments where they're great, like Parasite, and there are moments where they're not welcome, like Queen and Slim. Right? So it's definitely something that it needs to be juggled and also has nothing to do with the film, but it helps enhance the experience.
Yeah.
But we don't have time to get into that, but I just wanted to interject.
Yeah.
If you're nasty.
And I fully agree. Like, there's aspects of the movie that I didn't even get to appreciate the first time watching.
Yeah.
So it's definitely played a part in how I perceive the movie overall now. And yeah, it's a good movie, but it's a really good movie. I wouldn't come out here and say we're all different and we all have our tastes and we all have our preferences. I love Parasite and I agree to your, is it the best thing I've ever watched in my life? Probably not, because from my frame of reference, that's not it.
Yeah, it's District 9 apparently.
But I do love it. I do love it though.
Okay, let's get into my first impressions. Cutely enough, our first episode of 2020 was Succession, and we absolutely loved it. And if you've listened to the Succession episode, also if you haven't watched Succession, go and fucking do it, or fuck off. As our daddy Brian Cox would say. But in the Succession episode of the For Your Reference podcast, I did liken the pleasurable experience to a new sex position. And I would say non-sacrilegiously, even though I am thinking about Bong Joon-ho half of the time, that Parasite is a new sex position.
Oh, wow.
And what I mean by that is, you know, when you're doing it the first time, you're still trying to figure out the mechanics of it. You're feeling a pleasurable sensation, but you're not necessarily sure where it's coming from, right? And then when you do the position, or when you do the Parasite again, you start to figure out what's bringing you pleasure, or in some cases, what OT kinks don't work. Right?
Yeah.
But I absolutely love Parasite. I was that annoying fucking person in the cinema, pulling my glasses up, pulling OT's glasses up, pulling all of our genitals out. It was absolutely amazing. I loved that experience. For every bad boys that we cover, we do have a Parasite, and I am absolutely splooshed in every single regard. We did watch it, you know, now, wow, almost 2 years ago. Yeah. We watched Parasite, but we wanted our American, or even people that just didn't have access the first time, to be able to watch it so we could cover it in a comprehensive way. Until we get to a point where people care enough to want to hear or want to pay for our opinions as soon as something comes out, we do have the luxury of covering things as we see fit and when we have the time or when we feel compelled to.
Yep.
And this is exactly the case for Parasite. And I'm pretty sure it'll just be Katie Meg Ryan splooshing all over the episode if we ever tried to record it right out of the cinema. Am I promising anything more intelligible?
Listen to a John Wick episode.
Yeah, we were 2 bottles of wine right out of the cinema recording John Wick.
Yeah.
Or Jonathan Wickerson, if you're nasty. But here we are, very learned, very splooshed, well lubricated in many of the ways. And as you can tell, I am a fully fledged member. If not, I've got my little tent outside of the official bong hive, trying to infiltrate my way into there. You know, we're going to get into a lot of discussion. You know, some of you guys are very nasty. And if you're still here and you haven't watched Parasite, this is your last official warning, because we are going to talk about the movie, but spoilers and the last act are going to come out because we need to do that to be able to dig deep, especially in regards to social standing. So if you're in our social standing, most welcome. We're not the richest, but we're the most splooshiest. The last thing I would say in regards to my first impressions, because I'm not sure if if I will be granted the opportunity, or OT's going to play like Splooshies Awards music to tune me out. Hello, friends and lovers of 2021. It is Katie from the For Your Reference podcast, making the first official PSA of this year. Do not trivialize art. There are many films that you can gif and you can meme, but do not do this to Parasite. You know, I love the idea of having things that you can reference. If anything, we are a reference podcast, and I do understand that. Park So-dam is an amazing actress who plays Ki-jung, otherwise known as Jessica. It just bothers me watching interviews where literally they just ask her to do that little chant and that song, and that kind of becomes, you know, it distills the film into that. And it bothers me. And you have Western interviewers asking the cast of Parasite, how does it feel for Hollywood to know who you are?
Piss right off is what I'd say.
It fucks me the right off. It fucks me the right off. And if you want to hear about my BTS thoughts, I guess you can meet me on my personal Twitter account and we can talk all about that. But it really It bothers me. If you were waiting for the official definition of Katie as a wanker, there I am. Am I a gatekeeper? In no senses. But if you do try and come here with some nonsense, I will knock you the fuck out. Shall we continue?
Yep.
All right, let's continue. Hoo.
Mm-hmm.
Are you raging?
As a bull.
It is most welcome.
Mm.
Thank you very much. Let's talk about the film. There are a lot of characters surrounding this film, and I do feel like they are representative of the economy, of society. There are some very real universal themes that are going on here that are felt all around the world, but there are some very specific South Korean themes that are going on as well, and I can't wait to talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
But before we do that, let's talk about the directing / cinematography. And this is your time, OT, if you're nasty, to pull your Criterion monocles up.
I think this is one of the things that I really did get to appreciate the first watch, or even maybe the second watch, because I think we watched a Bong interview, where he suggested that he was influenced by a 1960 movie going by the name The Housemaid.
Kim Ki-jung, shout outs.
Yep. And when we watched The Housemaid and then watched Parasite afterwards, it was just mind-blowing, because he talked about the staircase in Housemaid and how he took it to symbolize
class.
And then when we watched Parasite, all we could see was staircases.
Yeah.
You know, and what we saw, we're like, oh wow, opening our minds to a different level of watching movies. It's exciting. And then it got us to think a lot more. At least it got me to think a lot more while watching it. You know, in the Kim's house, you know, it's a semi-basement apartment where we have this small window outlooking the street.
Just a little bit of hope.
A little
just
bit of
enough
hope
to keep you going.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah.
And then in the Park's residence, it's full on. Like, it's all glass made, overlooking a really lush green garden.
Springtime of youth, don't you reckon?
Exactly, man. Jiraiya would have been having a party out there.
Naruto reference, you
So,
weebs.
It really opened our eyes to understanding or appreciating what he was trying to do and what he was trying to allude to in the movie. So I took the cinematography, at least elevated or influenced specific aspects of the movie, where before I was just looking at it as a mere, oh, this looks cool. It looks pretty good, you know?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, at least I think from a director's perspective, you just want your movie to look good. But overlaying messages in it and the symbols takes it to a different level.
Oh, absolutely. And on the Criterion, let me pull both of my monocle glasses up. On the Criterion collection, we do have Bong Joon-ho's interview, and he is lauding and referencing The Housemaid. He talks about horizontal lines. Right. And like you said, it's conditional priming. Like if someone told you there are more blue cars than any other color in existence, you will start to believe that that's the case. So every time you see a blue car, it reaffirms that. Not to the level of Quanon. You know, cross off your for your reference bingo. I referenced Quanon in our first episode of 2021. What a great fossil. But everything is so meticulous. Without being a color grading artiste, I would say that there was a difference in the class, even visually. Because when we were with the Kim's family in their semi-basement, it did feel a bit more gritty. There was more green and, you know, gray sort of shading.
Yeah, a green fluorescent tint. Yeah, definitely.
Why must you mention my privates?
Ew, Katie.
Okay, go and watch Schitt's Creek. Who thought we would be referencing so much? But also, the joke's on you, I guess. Read the title. Also, we earn our explicit tag wherever we can.
Oh, for sure.
And then, like you mentioned, the springtime of youth. When we're in the Park's mansion, there's really nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
There's sun shining on us. We're having a good time. Even when it's raining, we're sipping our whiskey. We're having a great time.
Actually, yeah, sunlight played a big part. It was really light and vivid in Park's residence. And then when you move on to the Kims, barely any sunlight. Just from the small window that was coming in. And even from the shots, you had this close sort of perspective where you felt claustrophobic
Yeah.
while watching them.
Yeah, absolutely.
But in the when watching the parks, mate, you felt like you could do cartwheels and somersaults.
I'm not smart enough. I'm not clever enough to verbalize, but the fact that they were only able to connect to the outer world in their place of excrement, I think also speaks to their conditions as well.
Oh, yeah.
And it's very interesting, and I can't wait to talk about the families specifically because they had a very different reception to their current state of events and their circumstances. But let's move on to the story and also the writing of the film.
So I loved it. I loved the story. I love the
Then
story.
what's your qualm then? Because you're saying you love it, but at the start you were DMXing me, sir. And we do love that sex position, but we're not talking about that now.
My qualms aren't all quenched.
Oh my.
Albeit the fact that I still love the story,
Mm-hmm.
I had issues with aspects of the characters.
Okay,
know-
so it wasn't necessarily the execution, it was the choice of the characters.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I felt, and I think we'll get into different characters and more in-depth analysis later on. But to me, especially coming from, Africa, we didn't have everything growing up. My parents struggled, and I appreciated everything that they could to get me to, to access things. So when watching a different family in a situation where they didn't have everything and the decisions they made once they landed on, a gold cloud, it just felt a bit jarring on mistakes they made, on how greed perpetrated them to do things that I didn't agree with.
I think who you are is who you are, whether you're rich or poor. And I think that's something to talk about as well. I think one of the things that would surprise you, friends and lovers, is you wouldn't necessarily associate the word conservative with the For Your Reference podcast. But in regards to, financially, I would say we are quite conservative. So I get what you're saying, but also at the same time, you of all people should be able to acknowledge that you are existing in a system where you are set up to fail. That there is no sense that you will be able to get to where you need to go. And I'll bring some examples from the film. I think it's right after Ki-woo and Ki-jung get recruited into the Park's house. Recruited because it was very militant. It was very dutiful and deliberate, right? Yeah. And I think they're at a buffet for drivers. And during that very casual sort of discourse, and I got to give credit to Bong Joon-ho as well, because a lot of the social commentary happens in very casual conversation. Yeah. Right? It doesn't need to hit you over the head. It can flick your bean instead. Oh my, did I create a merch?
You sure did.
That only I will wear. But there is a discourse there, and very casually they talk about all of the jobs that Ki-tech has been through. And I love that because it furthers the narrative, even from earlier in the film, that even if you're skilled, and not in this case, but in some cases, even if you're qualified, the economic model isn't set up for everyone to succeed. Yeah. It's set up for everyone to participate, but it's not set up for everyone to succeed. And that is something that I really appreciate from that. And what I would say, what I would counter, go and listen to our Itaewon episode, is if they know that they're never going to get to the level of opulence that the Parks have, why not squander it all? Why not celebrate the moments that they have? Specifically within South Korea, they have what's called J-balls. Yeah. Right? South Korea's economy grew much faster in comparison to other countries in the world. Credit to the J-balls, which are family-run conglomerates that had support from the government. But what happens now is a handful of super opulent, higher upper class people are living the good life. Yeah. But then you have millions of people that have grown these conglomerates that are never really going to be able to grow that. And, to bring it back to a worldwide sort of universal themes, we have a housing bubble, right? There's a housing bubble in Australia. There's a housing bubble specifically in South Korea. And there's also, the global financial crisis that was based on the housing bubble. Sunny and Brandy from the Book of Lies podcast that did The Big Short tell me if I'm wrong or not, if we're best friends. But South Korea has seen a financial crisis in the 90s, in the 2000s, and unfortunately, due to the Pamela Anderson, also going to see problem because there was already problems before the panoramic pandemic, right? So, South Korea as well as the world is not in good standing right now. So if all you have is now and you have the luxury of your loved ones with you, why not squander it all is what I'm saying.
I understand all that.
Do
I
you?
get that. We covered aspects of this when we talked about Black AF and what Kenya Barry said about African Americans finding a gold mine and squandering it all because they fucking didn't have it all.
Give him his gold chain.
So get it when you get it. Get your gold chain, mate. Get your Ferrari. Get everything that you'd want.
Also, Michaela Coles, I May Destroy You. There was a discourse about that of now that black people are coming up, why can't they drive their Mercedes? Because now it's hurting the environment.
Yeah. There's aspects of that, and I fully appreciate that angle.
Mm-hmm.
But we're talking about characters here,
Yeah,
who are not naive. They're pretty smart.
Yep.
We have Ki-woo. I'm thinking in the sense of this guy is super smart. He knows. He always tries to plan. He always talks about planning. I have a plan for this. I have a plan for that.
Yep.
Even when they would reach towards the end of the movie where they were in the gym and he's asking the dad what the plan was, and the dad saying, "Oh, I don't have any plan," because once you don't have a plan, you can't fail.
Let's stay in that moment, because that is very pertinent to what we're talking about. And naturally, this film talks a lot about social status, and unfortunately, social mobility in some countries don't fucking exist. And I would say even in this regard, that's the case as well.
Yeah.
Right? So that gymnasium scene, I don't even know if this is something that people talk about a lot. I try to stray away from specific reviews of Parasite. I try to stay, I don't know. I just need to mention, it fucking pisses me off when people say explaining the ending of Parasite. Just fucking watch it. Oh, does it have a twist that you never saw coming? Yes. But also don't fucking trivialize art. I'm fucking sick of it. Just watch it.
I agree. Just watch it. But that doesn't take us out of the major issue where we have characters who are living in a lower standing in society. But once they got a tasting of Park's life.
Everybody talk about Park's life.
Not the Park, but they fully lose themselves in the moment.
Yeah, you own it. Don't ever let it go. Your hip hop roots are coming out, OT.
And it just frustrated me because I appreciate now that I have pulled myself by the bootstrap. And where I am now, I do not see myself landing on a fucking Goku's Nimbus and then blowing it all away because what? Greed?
Did you just give us another anime's reference?
Yeah, this was supposed to be all an anime podcast. Anyway, I do not appreciate that because I've lived that and I know how hard it is to climb that ladder. I'm not fully up there yet, but shit.
With my -5 qualifications, I think it's wrong to approach economics from your specific circumstance. I think you need to look at the broader statistics and how on an optic scale, everyone is moving or everyone is failing. I think that needs to be discussed. But let's go back to the gymnasium scene, right? And if you were not talking about the gymnasium scene when you were talking about Parasite, hey, if you want me to be a sex position consultant, I'll tell you that you're doing it wrong. But let's go back to that gymnasium scene because I think that really speaks to, the simmering and the crescendo, which we will see later on in the film, in the third act, if you will, of how it really builds up from there. If you're not really bought in, if you're not able to identify or at least be able to resonate or to be able to empathize to some certain extent, then you're not going to get it in the gymnasium. You kind of have to be in before that point.
Yeah.
And exactly what you're saying. So we have the Kim family, we have Daddy Kim and we have Ki-woo, and you can see that they've both lived very different lives. You know, they've lived that semi-basement life and they've been trying to efficiently find a way to fold these pizza boxes, but they've both had very different experiences, even if those experiences are just additional years of the same shit that you've had to continue to eat. And that's the difference that we see here. Ki Woo still has that periphery of things that can still be better. I feel like Ki Tech Daddy Kim kind of accepts that this is just their lot in life.
Yeah, he can
Anything
see,
else is a bonus.
I agree that Ki Woo sees beyond the glass, beyond the window of the pissing man outside the apartment. I fully appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I know that Ki Tech doesn't see that. He's in a 4x4. He doesn't see shit outside the window.
Yeah. Anything else is great. Like bring in the fumigation to help our place, but he doesn't see any sort of mobility further up the social standing.
Yeah, he's fully disillusioned. He accepts where he is financially and socially. And we've all been there.
Yeah.
Or at least I've been there. Where you look towards the future.
Are you trying to OT snipes me?
No
how much have you been evading, sir?
I'm just saying, we've all seen a future where we can't see how it becomes better. And then a moment happens where you have to grab the moment and just change your fortunes. And Ki Woo does that. Ki Woo does that for them.
Yeah.
He gets in as a tutor.
Yep.
Where he tutors Dahi. You know? And he brings on their sister to become an art therapist.
Don't you love when they're eating at the buffet? She was like, yeah, I just Googled the shit and made the rest up.
Yeah. Which speaks to her fucking intelligence.
Yeah, absolutely.
And why and you know, she ad-libbed to a point where it was believable for call Miss Park whatever you want. Call her naive, call her privileged, call her whatever. But she's fucking rich. When you are capable enough to be fooled by someone that knows nothing of art, it's not that she just believes it off the heel of her feet.
Yeah. Is that is that a Kenyan proverb or is that an OT phrase or mine?
I'm pretty sure that's a thing. International thing.
Feel free to hashtag fact check OT. But if I was still in high school, I would have him on my folder. Park Seo-jin, Min's character, he mentioned that she was young and simple. So I don't necessarily think that Mrs. Park was steeped in the arts.
I wouldn't say steeped in the arts. I would just say
she cared about her son and she felt like that Jessica knew what she was talking about. I think it's nothing further than that.
Cool. I took them as they're astute people in the society, especially Mr. Park.
She's a bit aloof.
She's aloof, but what about the husband then?
Oh, yeah.
It can't just be, we've made all this money. You just don't make money and stay there. You can lose money as quickly as you made it. The fact that they've been up there, and we have Miss Park saying, we've even gotten to a point where we're actually now getting even more fucking money. Yeah,
but she's saying we as the royal we, as the collective we, not her.
Mr. Park is not, he's with it. He's not simple.
Oh yeah, he's a businessman. It doesn't mean they know anything about art.
The funniest thing about rich people is they know how to keep their fucking money.
Yeah, because they don't fucking spend it. They spend other people's money.
So for you to come here and say, this 3 or this 4 people can come into their family and just squander all their riches on them because, hey, we're simple. Me, I don't buy it.
No, I'm saying in that particular facet, they're not necessarily savants of art.
They may not
just
be
like yourself, sir.
At least it speaks to Ki-jung's intelligence.
Yeah, I'm absolutely giving credence to Ki-jung. Even the fact that we have Ki-tech very earlier in the film lauding Ki-jung, saying, does Oxford have a mastery course in forgery? Because Ki-jung would be there. And that's exactly going back to my foundational sploosh. Oh my. If we didn't already have our patron tiers, which goes back to my foundational sploosh of even if you are talented, even if you are qualified, not in the official sense, there are systems that are in place that you will never be able to succeed in. And that is exactly the case. You mentioned that Ki-woo was very capable and very smart and very forthcoming in regards to his plans. You have Ki-jung, who is able to do the forgery and also bullshit the wankery rich people to the fact that she knows even the psychotic dark corner.
Yeah.
And then we have Mrs. Park identifying that in the drawing. Oh, she's so lovely. And she's like, I sit there at dinner and watch it every day and I didn't notice. She's well-meaning, but she is very simple. Also in that regard. The mom, if there's any sort of qualm you want to have with a character, I'm in the ring with you, bro. If you want to talk about Chung-suk. But anyone else, I will definitely go to bat for.
Cool. Go to back for them. All I'm saying is you can't have fully realized characters in King Woo and Ki-jung and then all later sunder because what? Greed? Throw the plans out the fucking window?
No, but what you're not understanding is they may never have this opportunity again. So why not live it up?
They're earning money. They're getting a salary. We have Miss Parks being fully generous to a fault, I might say.
Yep.
You know, here's a salary. I've added an extra bit for inflation. She's the sweetest lady there is.
She is very sweet.
And she treats her employees, at least when it comes to paying them, without any restrictions.
Yep.
When they were bringing them over for the kids' impromptu birthday party, you know, she was like, yeah, we'll pay them overtime.
Yeah.
She did not hold to her coffers because at least we know that she would pay. And once you realize that you're getting that money, just sit with it, be with it, earn it.
Well, I think this is great because it's the battles of your mamas. And we have Mrs. Park and we have Chung-suk. And what I want to take you to is the scene of opulence that you do not care for. I think that really bothered you. And that's for your projection that you need to reconcile in a different time. Which is where you have the Kim family living in the mansion and enjoying it while the Park family is away. And Chung-suk says something very interesting. You know, she goes on a verbal tirade on, and I think it was also in response to Ki-taek, because Ki-taek's like, oh, these rich people are very nice.
Yeah.
Paraphrasing. And she says they're nice because they're rich.
Yeah.
And okay, fine. Roll credits, but then she makes it unbelievable because we always say if you're gonna lie, make it believable. And she's like, if I was rich, I would be nice too. And it's like, no, motherfucker, you're a fucking asshole, whether you're rich or poor.
And I think if she was rich, she'd be even far worse.
She'll be worse. I do not want to see a film where Chung-suk is the rich person, but let's go back to it because she mentioned something subtitled that I think was very important that I want to touch on. She mentioned that money is an iron, that it kind of wrinkles out all of your issues in life.
Yeah, agree to a point. What bothered me with Chung-suk is that she just talked out of her ass.
Yeah.
She did not factually believe, or at least we did not get a representation of what she was saying on screen.
And her ass had a lot to say, even in regards to Ki-taek.
Especially when we get introduced to Moon Guan when she's coming back.
Yeah.
We have this mentality where, because Chung-suk is fucking poor.
Yeah.
So you'd treat a fellow person who's in your social standing the same, at least as well as you want to be treated.
Okay, so let's talk about it. Right? Because familiarity breeds contempt. And when I talk about familiarity, I'm talking about within a social standing.
Yeah.
Right? And what I really love about this film is, you know, just when you think your sex position is done, switch, right? And then you feel a deeper sensation from that position or that parasite if you're nasty. Because it really did become, at some point you realize it's the rich versus the poor, right? Without actually realizing within the poor, there's different hierarchy within that as well.
Yeah.
And, you know, for Chung-suk, or for the whole family, but very believably with Chung-suk, for her to think that she is above anyone where they were physically, financially, in every aspect of the word, for her to look down on someone else, it made no fucking sense.
It didn't.
And maybe we are kumbaya around the campfire, but it really didn't make any sense because, even Moon Guang, she was saying, sis, my sis, right?
Yeah.
But it wasn't until the whole family, very cockamamie, fell down the stairs and they pretty much exposed themselves, right? That she had no more leverage.
Yeah.
And then Chung Suk was like, my sis, my sis. And then Moon Guan's like, fuck you, motherfucker.
Yeah.
I'm going to look after my own.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's where we get a completely different contrast on who the Kims are, and at least how Moon Guang and Guan Si orchestrated the whole parasitical sort of relationship with the Kims, with the Parks, sorry.
It's very interesting because also at the same time, within the lower class, I guess what's also exemplified through the film is, the Kims are living in a semi-basement home, so they still have a way to navigate within normal society, but at any point they could become basement dwellers. And I think that's the part that perhaps is missing for the characters, but we can definitely pick up as ourselves. As much as we scorn and we poo-poo those that are slightly, marginally worse than we are, we could definitely be in that position in any moment. Specifically within South Korea, but also universally within the world, you come to a point where official institutions won't give you any loans anymore. Right?
Yeah.
And that's what we have with Moon Guan and Guan Si. They turn to a loan shark. And that was referenced. I don't know if they wanted to give a full circle to the Venn diagram, but it was mentioned earlier that Ki-taek did work at a Vietnamese cake shop. Right? And we see that Guan Si had a very similar situation where he was being chased by loan sharks.
Yeah.
And, depending on whatever spoon you had, whether it was a silver spoon or not, it's very easy to say they shouldn't borrow from loan sharks, but also at the same time, you're not understanding the struggle that they had to go through in their path. That maybe they had exhausted it already, and maybe this is the hippy dippy KT that's coming out. But I do feel for Moon Guang and Guan Si. Maybe not in the last theatrical act of this Shakespearean tragedy, but I did feel for them because at any point in time, unfortunately, it's a very precarious balance in South Korea, but also globally as well, that as much as you are able to fold your pizza boxes, you could be hiding undercover for criminal reasons, but also financial reasons as well.
Yeah, and I hold nothing against them. I fully understand the situation.
But why do you understand them and not the Kim family?
Because they did not exploit. They did not go beyond the line. They were not greedy. They were not greedy.
Social change doesn't happen when people say please and thank you, sir.
Of course, there was a parasitical relationship with everyone, with the Kims and how, with the Parks and how they interacted. But at least they knew not to draw too much fucking blood. There was a level of understanding that he had lived down there on the basement.
Yep.
For 4 years. That's something I don't think the Kims would have done. Because they would have gotten greedy, they would have gone upstairs, they would have partied the hell out,
Yep.
They would have gotten caught, they would have been raging because they're seen as lesser human beings for the societal standing. Which is which I can fully appreciate as a viewer, but as a person, nah, I can't. I really can't because in Moon Guang we see she knows where she stands. She takes care of Guan Si for 4 years.
Yep.
In the basement, and they could have probably gone on for 20 more years, and they would have. And she was doing this even before the Parks came to this house. So it's a bloody long relationship where she knows how to tether the line without falling over.
Okay, it's very interesting, and I don't think we have the time and maybe not the protective shell to go through it in this episode, but it's very interesting on who you resonate with and who your allegiances lie to, or at least where your dick is swinging, right? But it is very interesting because they're both from a lower sort of standing socially, financially, in every sense of the word. But yeah, it's a delicate balance of where do you ask for too much and where do you just accept the fact that this is where you are and that's it.
Mm.
How did you feel tonally in regards to the film? Because as we get to the last third, I would say it does get very eccentric, I would say is the word. You know, we have the Native American reenactments, but more so I'm saying if you're not already bought in by the film, maybe you think that's a bit out of place, but I felt that was very deserved. And when Key Tech actually stabbed Mr. Park, that was a triumphant moment for me. One of the most satisfying, thrilling, visceral experiences in cinema that I've ever experienced.
Wow.
Again, I am Katie Trimagasi, but I'm not going to go around stabbing people.
I felt like tonally was being taken on a merry-go-round.
I don't think you were bought in. See?
Not even that. We started off being slightly comedic, and then we shifted gears to being this sort of
A heistish.
thriller sort of mood or genre, and then we ended up in this sort of dark, horrific sort of way, and I'm like, cool. I can see the build up of Mr. Kim getting there.
Yeah.
And whilst I understand all that, I understand him feeling less of a human being, feeling less that he cannot see beyond, he cannot see the vision. He cannot see what the future holds.
Yep.
He's fully disillusioned.
Mm-hmm.
I bought into that because we have character development, we have storylines building to that.
Credit to the writing.
Mm-hmm. But what I didn't understand or what I didn't get is him, all their decisions.
Yep.
Is what caused this chaos.
Oh, come on.
Their greed caused this.
Oh.
Chang Suk's inability to connect with someone with the same similar standing with her built this.
How dare you? How dare you? Why, when we were
this was a strategy of their own making.
No, but why, when we're reviewing Spartacus, you're like, go for blood, motherfuckers, and then here you're like, be nice, say please and thank you, and be on your merry way.
Not say please and thank you, because Spartacus is a step removed from
reality,
in my understanding, or at least in my viewing.
Because it's not set in modern times? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. With this, I'm fully encapsulated in my own upbringing and in my social growth and in my, be it social political messaging that's there. Because they cover a lot in that space.
Well, I go against your advice, and Katie's advice is treat every day like it's a third act of Parasite, motherfuckers.
You know what's interesting, though?
Yep.
Is getting Mr. Park's view of the social low class people in society.
Yep.
Because he equates them to a wet rug or the subway, a distinguished smell.
Yeah.
Which is hurting as fuck.
But I love the fact that you brought it up, because I do feel like that is a vehicle. It goes beyond smell, right? Because it's very easy in a film to be able to exemplify it through smell. But, financially, sexually, racially, I feel like on some sort of scale, we've all felt lesser in a room of other people.
Yeah.
And that was definitely a universal theme that was being tapped on in that particular moment throughout the film. But if you're feeling the triumph that I'm feeling, you definitely felt it in that moment. People that make you feel like you shouldn't even be in the room, or in some cases not even exist, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. And I think what Bong did so well is depicting it. Okay. Even in certain shots where they were running from the house when it was raining. We get a symbol where the rain is so completely, it's symbolic of how different it is for people in
different classes. Yeah.
You have the super rich people who...
It's a very picturesque...
Oh, it's raining. How beautiful. Let's pitch our teepee out there.
And our son can just chill out there. No worries.
But for the lower class, it's completely
Their
different.
whole house was destroyed.
Yeah.
Their sense of livelihood, where they had to take that snap decision to decide what is valuable to you, salvage that because everything is fucking washing away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where, as well, my qualms with this came from, because if greed didn't play a factor in this, they would have been home.
Mm-hmm.
They would have closed the window.
Yep.
The apartment would have been flooded. They would have ended up in a gymnasium. They would have listened to Park describing them as associating with the smell. All of that.
Oh, come on. People are going to treat you the way they're going
People
to
are going to
treat
treat you, but you wouldn't hear it.
Irregardless. Mm.
He wouldn't be there to hear it.
Yeah, but even in the interactions, the way that they treat you. Friends and lovers, meet me at the solstice. We will revolt.
There's a saying, ignorance is bliss. There's a reason why that's around.
Well, yeah, it's also why you mute and block people. No one in particular, motherfuckers.
Exactly. It's the fucking block. It's the reality. It's reality's fucking block. If you're not there, it can't hurt you, mate.
Yeah. But also at the same time, rest in love and peace, Andy Whitfield. I guess I'm feeling my Spartacus sort of loins right now. Yes, you said they got too greedy, but also at the same time, were they just supposed to lay down and live their semi-basement life for the rest of their life? What is wrong with them wanting to dare to dream to have more?
They always had plans. We had Kim Woo, who had plans for days.
Yeah.
But once the whole family is on a fucking payroll, there's no plan to utilize that money.
But what's wrong with that? Why can't they?
The only thing we saw them using that money for is fucking eating a buffet. Squandering the money they have. Fine, I accept there's a level of, I want this, I need this, or let's get something that we'll never have.
There's a level of indulgence because they don't know how much longer they'll have this opulence. And the fact that we're talking about a buffet as opulence in 2021, that is some lower class shit, right?
No,
that is some struggle shit.
Mate, a buffet in African countries, or at least in third world countries, is fucking ridiculous. It's expensive. It's not like the $10 buffet you Ravi. No,
right.
Buffet symbolizes something different.
I didn't realize
to get a fucking buffet in Kenya is super expensive. It's something that only the rich can get. It's a social thing. It's a social class thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, here in Australia, it's something different. Like, oh, buffet is like, hey mate, let's go get a buffet. That's different.
Yeah.
It's not a $10 thing.
But what you also need to acknowledge, if you're saying Kenya is different to Australia, so is South Korea, my love. And that buffet wasn't
It's a social class thing. Buffets isn't. I'm just looking at it from what it's been written.
Mm-hmm.
They are living and getting meals or trying to get coupons or whatever the fuck they were trying to get to survive the day to day.
Yeah.
Buffets was never in the agenda. And when they're in the football club, they're like, hey, indulge in everything you can, eat everything you can, because it's a once in a lifetime moment.
Yeah.
It's nothing that they could have gotten if they were not getting that money.
Interesting.
So I'm equating that to my understanding of what buffet symbolized in Kenya, in Africa.
It's interesting the way that social class brings such a very vibrant and vivacious dialogue, because my whole family drove over an hour because my dad won $60 in a lottery ticket.
Mm.
So it's a very different experience, I guess, around the world, as global as we can be on the For Your Reference podcast. But also at the same time, universally, I feel if you're not seeing the end of the tunnel, if you're not part of the J-Balls in South Korea, then get the fuck that's yours in that fucking moment. And even if it's not yours, get it. Get it while you can and dip out.
Man, they just squandered the opportunity and they put themselves in a position where they got to their fields.
If you want to have a very layered, if you want to have a very conflicting discussion, then we can talk about where they are living their opulence, where Ki-jung is in the tub and they're all sitting around and eating. If you want to have a really layered, complex discussion, then we can talk about that, because there is a moment when they reflect on the driver that they dismissed, as well as a housemaid, not 1960, that they dismissed. right? And they start to grapple with their humanity of, I've taken someone else's place, and for the sake of them continuing to be able to function, they have to believe that they got a better job. But you don't know that. They might be struggling worse than you now.
Yeah.
If you want to have a real, something that you can hold more than a cup full of bosom, yeah, let's talk about that, because that is some real grappling of social class that we can talk about. Because it's very easy for me when we're talking about the Kims and the Parks. It's a very easy line of, they're not bad people, but I'm going to get as much as I can get. But if you're talking about everyone that's kind of in the same social class, that's some very meaty discussion. Then yeah, I am all the way in with you. Ki-jung kind of just didn't care, and I understand that as well. She's just like, I need to get what I need to get, because what else is tomorrow? She knows she's talented, but also at the same time, they mentioned earlier in the film, she doesn't have the finances. They don't have the finances for her to go to school. And whether she was forced to or not, she kind of just accepts that. She also mentioned how she took odd jobs of being in people's weddings, right? Just to be able to fill the attendance. And if you're able to catch the bouquet, you get extra money.
Yeah.
Right. So there is a lot of grappling of what they deserve in this lifetime, and also what that means for other people because you took their jobs. Maybe not to the point of they took her jobs from South Park, but you really see a grappling of social class within that. So if you want to have a meaty discussion, that's where we would have it, my love. And also at the same time, I'm not sure if you noticed, they were drinking really high shelf spirits, but they were also eating really cheap sort of meats. And I love some cheap meats. They had some salami. They had, even at some point, Ki-jung was eating dog food without even realizing it. That's sad.
That was more towards the opulence of how the Parks are living.
But I'm saying it's a melding of those worlds. They're drinking their liquor, but they brought their own food in. So it's a juxtaposition of the opulence that they're indulging in, whether warranted or not, according to you, but also the fact that they brought their own food in. And it was a very jarring visual to me, because they were eating really cheap sort of meats, but they were indulging in really high shelf sort of liquor. So if you really want to get into some layered discussion, that's where we have it, my love. If you want to talk about the Parks versus the Kims, I am the Kims all the way 24/7 every day.
Cool. Like, and I get that. To a level, I get that.
You were about to say appreciate.
You know, like you could go back to the Parks over and over again. And
hello, Jackie Chan from Rush Hour.
I cannot see any reason why Young Kyo was a problem in this.
I don't think she was a problem. I think these characters are representative of the social class in South Korea, but also universally the world. And in some cases, you'll get really nice, well-intended rich people. And then in some cases, you'll get really vile and bitter lower class people.
Coming to Mrs. Park, it's not until where Mr. Park says that he there's this smell that
post bean flicking.
Yeah, that Ki-tek has.
Yeah.
You know, it's not until then that she senses it, that she gets it, that she smells it.
Yeah.
Before that, she was happy in her ignorance of not knowing.
I don't think she was ignorant though. Look at you. You're being ignorant. You're calling everyone ignorant. I don't think they're being ignorant though. I think they're just focusing on their specific circumstances and not worrying the fuck whatever anyone else is going on about. I don't think that's ignorant.
Ignorance, naivete, call it whatever you fuck you want to call it.
OTT.
She was fully happy in that level. She did not smell anything. She was just, you know.
I don't think she thinks too deeply though. Not in a bad way. I wish I didn't think so deeply.
Then do you think that Mrs. Park married rich?
But we also don't know if both of them were already rich to start off with.
Maybe so. But based on the behavior of Chung-suk, oh man, I feel like...
Yeah, Chung-suk, what's the opposite of an MVP? Because that's what she gets. Least valuable player?
She was a problem and a half for me.
But I think she also brings some realness to it, because everyone else gives us hope in the lower class, right? That we're all pulling up by our bootstraps. And then you have motherfucker Jung Suk coming around the corner reminding you that there are some really spiteful and scorn lower class people. And that's what she represented.
Mm.
So it is multi-layered in its exemplification of social class, which is what I'm pretty sure the intro was.
I get it. All I'm saying is the trajectory that the characters took, I did not fully resonate with. I did not understand it.
You don't think it had to get to the point of stabbing and killing people? Is that what you're
Not
saying?
to the point of stabbing Mr. Park. No.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a frustration that was brought out of greed, in my opinion, and them being in a position where they shouldn't have been in the first place.
But if they're never going to get anything better than a semi-basement in the realms of a film, okay? Because if we're not economists, right? So we're not talking about the real world shit, right? But if we're talking about the realms of a film, we kind of disband like the consequences of reality. And we kind of see that come to play when people start getting knocked in the head, right? So when we disband the consequences of reality, what's so wrong with them getting theirs? Whether it's willful or not, what's wrong with them getting theirs in that moment? Because at any moment they'll be thrust back into the fumigation and pizza boxes. When you are consuming film that portrays social commentary with real world like themes, do you disband any sense of reality and let people go for broke? Because if that's the question that's being posed, that I posed myself, that I myself will answer, then yes, I will fucking go on a rampage. Just like we did in our El Hoyo, the platform episode. We're talking about some real world themes. We're talking about some real world problems. But in a realm of a movie, I am disbanding real life consequences. And I am going to light the flame and I'm going to go into a rampage and revolt with you. That's how I feel.
No, it's an allegorical device that Bong has used.
Yeah, allegorically, I'll go on a rampage then. Join me in the solstice.
No, like you can talk about all the cinematic devices, all the themes and all that. At the end of the day, it was based fully on an aspect where we could all relate to on some base level.
Okay, if you didn't know, OT is our residential accountant. I'm going to do what you may consider a sex position, but is also known as 60-minuting OT. Okay, so let's start to debrief. Parasite, the masterpiece, the dutifully executed. Do you believe that there was messaging, whether well or not? Do you believe that there was messaging in regards to social status in society?
That was messaging.
So it's a yes or no, sir?
Yeah, yes.
And do you believe within the social classes that were portrayed in Parasite, there were layers to it?
Yes.
Do you also believe that even within a social class, lower class, for example, that there was friction within members of that social class?
Yeah.
Do you also believe that regardless of social class, irregardless if you're nasty, that we all deserve some level of luxury?
Yeah.
The court rests, Your Honor.
Yes, but then again, there are nuances to everything.
There are absolutely nuances. Nuances that you agreed in earlier questions were exemplified through the masterpiece of Parasite.
To a degree.
I take reprieve, Your Honor. Whew. My advice to you friends and lovers, and in some cases motherfuckers, is learn how to have a discourse on film. As much as OT and I are a unit in every delectable sense of the word, there are moments where even in fraying hairs, we disagree with each other, but it always becomes a tantalizing sexual avatar tentacle discourse. And I love that about us. There's a push and pull, if you're nasty, where we can really get to an understanding not only of ourselves, or also how we saw the film portray itself. And Parasite, for many, many years to come, will continue to be that.
True.
Because I'm not about toxic masculinity, because women can also be masculine, you motherfuckers in 2021, I will allow you to have the last word. Is there anything else you would like to say, my love?
I just want to restate the fact that I did love Parasite, but at the end of the day, this is a podcast where we need to have some sort of level of discourse and discussion and having alternate views on things, or at least bringing alternate views to better understand the effects of what Parasite meant and brought to the table in terms of it being a movie worth talking about in decades to come.
I didn't know that you were the embodiment of Terrence Howard. It's like you just you just slapped us across the face and said, "But I love you, baby."
What's that got to do with anything, baby?
If you're enjoying the empire of For Your Reference, thank you so much for joining us on this discourse. I personally had some sort of trepidation about covering this film because I love it so much and because it means a lot, and I do love the messaging. Even in some cases, you know, OT doesn't necessarily agree with the messaging. You can definitely agree that there is multi-dimensional layer of messaging.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for joining us. I feel like we're not done with Parasite.
Probably not. Probably a Patreon episode just
Yeah.
to further...
I feel like in the future we'll rewatch it again and it'll be a Patreon exclusive. But Kansamida, thank you so much for listening and joining us in 2021. And we really appreciate you guys, you know, coming onto our podcast and listening, and in some cases also interacting with us. We are going to finish off in a segment we call For Your Reference. OT.
I would like to reference a movie that's dear in my heart. A movie that talks about the social political aspects of a society, in this case, Nairobi, Africa, Kenya, and that's Nairobi Half-Life. I think it does it quite well without overpromising too much, without getting its head out, or at least sticking its beak out of the realism that is the world, or at least in the capitalistic nature of the world.
All right. Well, with such a compelling reference, we need to cover it soon, don't you think, my love?
Oh, for sure.
If you'll allow me in this social standing, I have two references, my love.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is Kim Ki-jung's 1960 The Housemaid.
Yep.
And the last is, if you are dabbling, if you've got your genitals wet in South Korean cinema, I will recommend Along with the Gods.
Nice.
It's also been announced that the third and also fourth installment of Along with the Gods is being worked on right now, OT.
Brilliant.
So, 감사합니다, 사랑해. Thank you so much. We love you guys, friends and lovers. If you would like to continue along in a non-subtitled view on Twitter and Instagram, we are at ForYourRefPod.
You could write us an email on hello@fypodcast.com.
And we'll see you guys next week.
See ya.
사랑해.